Hi guys, welcome back. I'm Melissa if you're just joining me here. Today's video is actually going to be part 2 of my Scindapsus series. If you missed part 1 is where I showed you every Scindapsus in my collection. And part 2, which is this video today, we are going to be propagating like crazy. And to make this video a little bit more interesting, I guess, I want to prop them in different substrates to see which one roots and grows better or the fastest. I think it would be a fun little experiment. And part 3 will be, once these have rooted, I will show you the progress of them all, and then we will be potting them up and adding them back into my mother pots. I'm going to take each Scindapsus that I have in my collection and just bring them out here, and then we are going to prop them together. And then once we have all of our props towards like the end of the video, we will put them into the different substrates. And the substrates that we are going to be propping in is going to be, one of them is going to be Fluval Stratum. And Fluval Stratum is basically just volcanic soil. It has a lot of nutrients. It's mostly used in aquariums, but Fluval roots things really, really quickly. So I'm excited to use the Fluval. We're going to do sphagnum moss, dampened moss, and then we are also going to do perlite, just plain tap water. And then as a fun little experiment, I have some Scindapsus already rooted here. I'm gonna do a mixture of perlite, sphagnum moss, and there's some added Fluval. These are some extra cups that I have. They're dried, I just have to water it. When I did my prop box video, I made up a little concoction, and all the props that I have rooted in here are doing amazing. Like, look at that big leaf on that one. You can see so many roots, and yeah, they are doing so well. So I think I'm gonna like the combination of the three, because I feel like the moss and the perlite and the Fluval, it gets nutrients, and then it gets the added benefit of the moss with the hydration and the perlite. I think I'm gonna like that method the best, but we'll see. I'm excited. I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that button down below. I would love to have you here. And yeah, let's get started. Up first, I wanted to do this one first because it's literally one vine. This is my Scindapsus Silver Lady. It was a 1-leaf propagation. I will link part 1 down below in the description. If you missed my collection video, I go kind of into more detail about them, and I showed you some pictures of what they look like. But for this video, we are just going to be propping. Ugh. So I always clean my shears first. This is just isopropyl alcohol. And we're going to clean. It is so nice out here. Our grass is coming in, and it's turning a little bit more green, which makes me so excited for spring. All right, I do want to repot this one specifically, but I'm going to wait because I want to repot it and add the props in together on this one. So this one has a big leaf right here. So I'm going to cut on the node right before the next node because I want to leave that big leaf. So I'm basically cutting right here on this one. So we're going to go ahead and do one cut right there. And look at her. So she'll grow a new leaf from the node right here. She'll continue growing. So I'm not worried about this plant like not ever growing again. And some of the times when you cut back too, it activates lower nodes that are inactive to grow. Because I've had this happen multiple times where I propagate and cut, and then all of a sudden, like, you'll have 5 different nodes growing, which in turn like fills out your pot, which is pretty cool. So I'm excited to see how many of those actually pop out. So another thing I wanted to point out is wet sticks take a really long time to grow in my experience, especially on a Scindapsus plant. So the ones that are empty nodes, I will be cutting up, but they're probably going to take a while. So by the time I do the video, I think I'm only going to be potting the leaf cuttings in, because as long as you have a leaf, they tend to root a lot faster. So I have a feeling these I did in October, you guys, and it is now February. So it has been this long and I still don't have any growth on those wet sticks. So I don't want to wait that long to do the third part of this video. So whatever roots from the leaf cuttings I will do, and then all the wet sticks, we're just gonna throw them in probably a bin, and then if they root and grow, then they root and grow. If not, I'm not too worried about them, because some of these I'm gonna have a lot of empty nodes. So where we just cut, we're basically gonna cut in between each node. And the node is the brown little bump that you see. So here's a node, here's a node, here's a node, node, node. You're basically just cutting in between all those. So we'll do here, here. So these are 2 empty nodes. You have a leaf cutting. I'm hoping I can propagate enough to do, my goal is to do each plant and each medium. So I can see like which species, I guess, which variety even roots faster than other ones. I'm just curious, I guess. So I hope I want to do at least, so I have 5 different mediums, so I need to have at least 5 different leaf cuttings. So I'll make sure to take 5 cuttings of each plant, so that way it's fair across the board. And if I have more, then I'll just add them up together. See, I'm gonna have a lot of empty wet sticks. All right, so for her, look at all these empty wet sticks that will eventually grow. And then I have all of these cuttings. I have the top cut. The top cut is always the one where the new growth comes from, and then all the other ones are called mid cuts. So I literally have so many of these that I'm going to be rooting. This is going to be exciting. I'm excited to fill her out more, especially. I'm just laying on the table here. You probably won't be able to see all of them, but I'm just creating little piles. I'm gonna do the leaf pile, and then beside the leaf pile, I'm doing the wet stick pile. That way I can know which ones are which, because when I add these in the containers, I want to label them so that I know. So I'm just gonna set them up here because I have, do I have 7 different varieties of Scindapsus? So I'm gonna have a lot of cuttings on my table. I might water these that need a little water and put the plants back, because we're only gonna be working with the cuttings after I cut these all. This is the next one we were gonna do. This is my Scindapsus Jade Satin. She's really long. I don't really wanna cut her. I just love how long she's gotten. I feel like I do, just because I want to get her filling out. Actually, I think I'm going to cut here on her. I don't know if you can see. So she's got a couple empty nodes here and here. I think I might cut these 2 vines right here and not do anything with this one. Okay. I want to try to at least have 5 with a leaf. 1, 2, 3. So we need to cut here. So I had actually chopped this one before. You can see that growth right here, or that's where I had chopped. So this is the growth that came out of here. So I basically want to make sure that I leave a node so it can continue growing. So I'm actually going to be cutting here instead of here again, because I don't want this to be a spent node basically. So I'm going to cut here in between. I hope that makes sense. That'll leave us exactly with 5 leaves. Oh, she's so short now. She's still cute though. I love her. She's my favorite. Besides the Exotica, she's my second favorite. So these are our 2 vines that we're gonna do. So with our top cut, we're not cutting here, because this growth will pretty much die if we cut. With a top cut, you want to leave at least a leaf. So this is our top cut. And then we'll have a mid cut, couple empty nodes. Again, we have our top cut. And we have a mid-cut. I like growing the wet sticks. They can take a while, but it's one of those things where you can literally just sit and forget them and eventually they'll grow. And I always let my ends callus usually, especially if it's a thicker vine. So while we're cutting the rest of them, they're having time to dry, which is good. Because if they're wet and you stick them in your substrate right away, they can rot more easily in my experience. I actually brought my third one out so I didn't have to walk back in there again. So this is my next one. And I don't think I'm gonna be able to have, yes I can. Yeah, I'll be able to have 5 leaves. So this is my platinum. I got this one imported and yeah, it's like basically 2 vines and I definitely want to get this one filling out. So I'm going to be chopping this one. And where I had cut before, it has not grown anything, which is just so weird to me. So I don't know how this one's going to do. I just don't like the way that it's growing. So we are going to chop back. This vine here on this part, we're going to cut back to this leaf. Or should I leave 2 leaves? I want at least 5 leaves. 1 leaf. 2 leaf, 3 leaf, 4 leaf. Yeah, we're gonna cut back so we can take this leaf. So we are gonna do right here. So we'll have 1 cutting. These are some tiny little wet sticks. The spacing on this Scindapsus is a little bit tighter. So we'll have a lot smaller wet sticks to do. 2 leaves, 2 little wet sticks. And this vine here, we're gonna cut back before this leaf. So I'm gonna consider this just my top cut. I'm gonna leave both of those and root them like that because I'm worried this one won't make it since that leaf hasn't fully unfurled on that one. This plant is gonna be so little now. Oh, I hope I'm not cutting too much of this off. So I'm gonna cut these 2 growths here. And we'll cut in between. So I'll have 2 more, so that's 5. Look at how much I cut on this one. That is so sad. It'll be okay though, because it's gonna be filling out in no time. And then after all this chopping, it may just go crazy and activate a bunch of nodes. So we'll see. I'll give this one a little bit of water, it's thirsty. The next Scindapsus is the Moonlight, the Trubii Moonlight. And I have propped this one before. I used just water actually, and it did well. I have the props in a separate little soil container. I'm gonna add it in here when I go to add the rest of them in. So this one I don't mind cutting because it has just 2 long vines here and it has some more growing out on this side, but again it's kind of sparse and I don't like that it just has 2 long vines. So we are going to chop these. We'll actually probably be able to double this one up. So I just want to figure out where I want to cut. So I have an empty node here and here, but is that too much? I'm thinking I just want to cut here on this one. Yeah, let's just cut to there because I don't want to cut too much off. We have 2 vines that we're going to be cutting up. I want you guys to let me know in the comments of this video which substrate that you think will win. I'm actually curious what you guys think. I think it's going to be the Fluval or the Fluval Perlite and Moss mixture. I think they're going to root the best in that. So let me know what you guys think. I propagate in many different substrates. I used to use just water and moss, and I still use moss and water. But Fluval has just done so well for me. Hoyas love Fluval Stratum. And a lot of my other props in Fluval are doing really well. For the video, I'll probably do Probably every couple of weeks I'll update, because I want part 3 to be no more than 2 to 3 months out from this video, just to give them some time to root and that I have enough roots to actually pot up, because I feel like I want you guys to see that part where I actually take the props and pot them back in so you can see that process. So it's probably, I don't want it to be any longer than that. So I should definitely have roots on majority of these by that time. So we have lots of these ones. We can double some up. All right, I think the only Scindapsus that's left is the Argyraeus and the Silvery Ann combined, and then we have our big Exotica. I actually have 2 Exoticas, so I think I'll take a few cuttings off of my Exoticas, and I'll do some of the other one too. I forgot to mention, you want to make sure your plant is hydrated before you start propagating. Some of my Scindapsus are a little bit thirsty. I think this one is thirsty, but it'll be okay. I'll go ahead and take cuttings. So this is one of my Exoticas. She's my biggest and longest. So I'll probably cut a couple of these lower ones here. I might take a cutting or 2 from this one. I'm gonna probably pot this into here to fill her out. So I might take a couple off of this one too. We'll see. I'm gonna do her first. Yeah, she is thirsty. Whoops. I'm gonna go water her real quick. I can just tell she's thirsty without even like sticking my finger in the soil. Scindapsus tend to curl their leaves when they're thirsty. So we are gonna cut, let's cut here on this one. And then let's cut here on this one. So I might not even need to take cuttings from the other one as long as I have 5, which I will. Lots of wet sticks on this one too. You're just basically cutting in between each node, so it's pretty, I guess, straightforward. Just make sure when you are left with a top cut, you're not cutting the top in between the top growth. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 Exoticas. Lots of wet sticks on that one. Why don't we take a few more cuttings? I feel like chopping from each of these longer leaves. Why don't we do here on this one? Let's do this one here. That is good. Go ahead and water this one. I thought I watered these this weekend. Maybe I didn't. The last and final one is my Argyraeus and the Silvery Ann. They're potted together. She's my longest one, and she sits on the top shelf of my plant room, so I don't always water her on my watering day. I wait until she starts to curl, which she's at this point, so I'm gonna go ahead and water her before we take some cuttings. Probably not the best to take cuttings while she's thirsty, but she's not like at that point yet where she's like extremely underwatered. Okay, we have 2 vines that are pretty long, so I'm only gonna cut just for the experiment purpose of this video, because I hadn't planned on cutting her because I do like her length. Why don't we just take some from the bottom there and there and do mid cut. Our top cut. When you're taking cuttings too, I didn't mention, sometimes you want to leave extra space because they could rot, and if that happens on like the internode part on each end, you can cut more away to get rid of the rot. But sometimes depending on your vessel that you're propping in, if they're too long, they won't fit in there, so you have to keep that in mind too. I don't think I really have any runners on this one, maybe just a couple. I'm gonna give you guys a look at the table to see all of our cuttings together, and then we will get all of our supplies together. I have random cups here. So there's, how many varieties? 1, 2, 3, 4, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 6 Scindapsus, and then we are going to need, I'm trying to do math in my head. So I'm thinking I might do a few varieties in each substrate potted together to save space. I think some of the ones that have the bigger leaves, we might have to do those in a couple cups. And then some of the smaller ones, we can just mix the smaller ones together. I think I'm gonna do that, mix them. All right, I'm gonna pan you guys down so you can see all the Scindapsus up close here. And then we will get to filling up our cups with our substrates and adding them in there. And I'm gonna put these props back because I just wanted to show you those that have already rooted. Like that's some of the ones in that mixture with the perlite moss and Fluval. These are all like prop box in my prop box. I have several of those. These are actually all wet sticks. And here's some more and all those roots in there. So I'm gonna put these back in my plant room. And the wet sticks that were in here, the Scindapsus, it was the jade satin. So we have several more jade satins. So all these little wet sticks that were in here, I'm gonna take out. And we were gonna put these in a different substrate. So that's all Cebu blue that I'll have to get out of there at some point. And then the water props here, I wanted to show you, I have a jade satin in water, and then I have the Argyraeus, and those are all the roots. These have been in here for months. Same with all these in my prop box. I just haven't gotten these out of here yet. So we will add these in with our other ones, you know, all together. Here's what we have going on. So these are all the cuttings. So we have the Silver Lady, and beside that we have all the wet sticks. And then we have the Scindapsus Jade Satin and her wet sticks. And these are the ones that I had in the other container. Then we have the Platinum, that's the Trubii Moonlight. We have the Argyraeus and the Exotica. So these were the ones that I had done in the prop box. These were all the extra. I have 7. This is the perlite moss and Fluval mixture. It's completely dry, but I gotta hydrate it. So we're gonna do one from each of these into there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and make some just plain moss up, some Fluval and some perlite. And then we will make all of our containers. I basically want each cutting in each different medium, if that makes sense, so that we can see what roots the best. And then I have this tray. It's just a plastic tray that I think I'm gonna do a mixture of moss, perlite, and Fluval for the wet sticks. I'll just make some fresh up, and then we'll just line all the wet sticks, and I'll just cover with some saran wrap, and then I'll put like a label after each one so that we know which ones are which. So I think that's the best thing that I'm gonna do for the wet sticks. These geese literally will not stop squawking. They're quiet right now, but they were literally just going to town, just hollering. All right, so let's see. So I moistened some damp moss, and this is just plain tap water. I didn't, sometimes I add Superthrive in here, but I didn't for this video, just moss. And then I have the Fluval in here. And, oh, I don't have that much perlite left. I might be able to do 2 to 3 smaller containers. I gotta get more perlite. I thought I had another bag, but I guess I didn't. And then we have like our mixture of moss, perlite, and Fluval. Oh, water. Then I'm gonna do a separate container with water. So I think since these ones are right here, I'm gonna go ahead and do these first. This was the mixture. Since these are dry, I'm gonna go ahead and water these. And then we'll plop some cuttings down in here. So basically I have all these cups, so we're gonna do a cutting of each one. I guess the ones that we have more cuttings, I might do a couple in this one because I feel like this one's gonna do the best. So we cut the silver lady first. Let's do one of her. So the little node, when you add these in here, the little bump, the node, you wanna make sure that that is buried. You don't want it like sticking up. I might have to cut this one a little bit more. Because that's where it's going to root from, so you want to make sure that is in the substrate all the way. So we have a silver lady in here, and then let's do the Trubii Moonlight in here. I don't care if a few different Scindapsus varieties are together. I just want to save space, so I might just do like 2 per container. All right, so let's do a platinum, and we'll do Argyraeus. I might do a couple Argyraeus in this one just because I have so many of those. I'm gonna do a big Exotica in here and a Jade Satin. I like these little cups because you can keep an eye on them, like the clear ones. So we have one of each variety in the mixture of moss, perlite, and fluval. All right, let's do some fluval next. So this is just dried fluval. This isn't rinsed or anything. There's a plain. We're gonna keep the Scindapsus. Let's do the big Scindapsus and one of these silver ladies. I'm gonna do another Exotica in here. And again, you're just making sure that you can bury the node. Whoa. There's that one. Do a Jade Satin. And the platinum. I hope you guys can see okay. Okay. We have several of these, so let's do a couple of these ones. Let's do maybe 3 of these. And the Trubii Moonlight we haven't done. And we have a couple of these, so let's do 2 of those. These guys that have the short like spacing, it's hard to fit them in just because they want to lift right out of there. Okay, so I have 2 different kinds in there. And let me go ahead and water the fluval. So when you're propping with fluval and the perlite, you want to make sure to, you can set it up in a semi-hydro setup where you can do drain holes in 1 cup with the cuttings and sit them in a different cup that has a little bit of water, just so that it can wick up that moisture. I usually just water these when they're about halfway dry. I just top them off. And using these clear containers, you can actually see like the water level. So it's gonna, even if the water's here, it's gonna continue to wick up to the top because the cuttings are kind of towards the top. So I don't want it to go too dry. So I'll probably top this off when the water gets to be maybe like a halfway or so. And then in my environment, since I have experience with fluval in my space, It usually dries within 4 to 5-ish days, give or take, depending on how warm it is in there on any given day. So I just have to be mindful. Usually over the weekend I'll water, and then I usually top them off midweek. So right now the water line is like right here to the top, and then it's gonna slowly, each day passes, it's gonna like wick away moisture. And so when it gets to be like here, it'll probably be like halfway point by the time 4 or 5 days pass, and then I'll just fill it up to the top. You basically just don't want this stuff to dry out. And you want to make sure it gets light, because if it's not getting enough light and airflow, you don't need to cover this or anything, then you can get molding. So that's the only thing with Fluval that you just have to be mindful of. All right, so all 3 of those are kind of filled to the top. And let's do the moss next, just because I have it right here beside me. Once I'm all done, I will show you guys, like I said, I'll show you them up close. And I'll show you where I'm gonna put them in my plant room, and then I'll be doing updates on them for the next video. And for the moss, I just wring it out so that when you squeeze it, most of it drips away, and then I just fluff it in here. So we'll do a little bit and then add our cuttings and fill it up. So we'll do an Exotica in here. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, these little crispy bits over the nodes, you can peel those off because those can rot once they get kind of moist. So you don't need the little pieces, the little sheaths or caterpillars. Let's do this one, and let's do a jade satin in here. And you don't want to pack it too tightly, because you want to leave enough room for airflow. There's one. I have 2 different cuttings in there. Let's do a couple Truby Eye Moonlights in this one. I left some of these too long. I'm really excited to update you guys. I like doing these like propagation experiments to see which one is doing the best. Again, don't forget, let me know in the comments which one do you think is going to root the best. I'm curious what all you guys think. Okay, 2 different ones in there. I need 1 more. The geese are coming. As long as they're quiet. All right, that's the last one for moss. We have 2 mediums left. We have water and then just perlite left. So I think I should have enough for 3 in perlite. I'm not rinsing the perlite or anything. I'm just gonna water it. Okay, we're gonna do 3 Exotica. I have 2 Exotica left. I forgot I have to do the wet sticks too. Ah. I think the perlite's going to do really well too. All right, let's fill these up so that the water can keep these in here. And then just like the Fluval, I fill them almost to the top, and it'll continue wicking up. And then I'll just water it when it gets like 1/2 dry or so. I'll just top it off. All right, so we have our ones in perlite all done. And then we have our wet sticks left, and the rest of the cuttings we'll do in water. All right, before we do the last cuttings in water, I'm gonna go ahead and get these wet sticks put in here, because once I take all the cuttings away, I'm not gonna know which wet sticks belong to which Scindapsus. So I'm gonna plop them in here. So I have some of this mixture already. That's the moss, perlite, and Fluval. I'm gonna just dump out the excess, because that's what we're gonna use to hopefully root all these in. Look at this yummy goodness right here. Oh, that looks so good. All right, we are just gonna go down the line. So with our markers, let's write, so we need to write all 5 out, or 6 out. I'm just writing the date on one of the markers. So you have Exotica here at the end, and we have a lot of Exotica wet sticks, like a ton. The only thing with the wet sticks, again, is to pull the cataphil off, and then you're gonna put the bump side down, the node part, you're gonna put it down into the substrate like that. Just gonna flatten this a little bit more. So you're just gonna put them down like that. The growth point is up on top, and where the aerial root is, you wanna put that part down. And I'm gonna do them just in a line, actually. I actually need to save a little bit of this so I can put it down over top of them a little bit. So I'm basically going in a line down like that, doing like a row for each one. This container worked out perfectly. And I'm gonna cover this with saran wrap. I have the markers, which is, I'm not gonna be able to cover it very tightly because I don't wanna ruin the markers. I'm just gonna put like a light layer over it. Ooh, he's excited. You can't really see them in there, but that's how they are, and I'll cover that loosely. And I'm gonna go get maybe a couple prop vessels, because none of these are touching the water because the spacing is so short between the node and the leaf. And then we'll root the rest of these in water, and that'll be it. And then I'll show you all these up close and where I'm gonna put them in my plant room. So this is what we have going on. I crammed my plants to make room on this shelf. So I have all the individual cuttings, at least in a different medium. I have them potted up into 3 cups each. So every plant is in the same medium, I guess, if that makes sense. So we have the perlite, all the different cuttings are in the perlite. We have just sphagnum moss. We have the fluval. We have the moss, perlite, and fluval mixture, and then we have water. And we're gonna see who roots the fastest and which one does better. And these are all the nodes here. I just have it loosely topped with the mixture, but you can see them all in there. The only thing I'm gonna do is just loosely cover this with saran wrap so it can hold in a little bit of extra humidity for the wet sticks. But yeah, I have everything here. I can keep an eye on it. I can top everyone off. I'm worried the moss is gonna dry in this one, but I'll just keep an eye on it. Make sure nothing goes like completely dry. I think this one's gonna win, and this one. Those two. I think the perlite is gonna do well too. And water. Water does great. And moss. I think they're all gonna do well, but I'm curious to know which one's gonna do it the best and the fastest, I guess. I hope you guys enjoyed part 2 of this video. I'm really excited to just see how they do. And I will record probably bi-weekly updates on them to see if there's any progress, if I notice any changes, if any cuttings die. And then for the 3rd video, I'll do like a brief synopsis of my findings. And then we will take all those cuttings and pop them back into our mother pots, repot some Scindapsus that need them, maybe make some new pots. Not quite sure what the plan is, but I will definitely let you guys know the results in some time. I'm assuming it's going to be a couple months from now, just to give them enough time to root so that I can pot them up. But I will keep you guys updated. Let me know down in the comments which one you think is going to win, as far as which one will root the fastest and do the best. And I'm curious to know like what you guys think about that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and look forward to part 3 in a couple months' time.